The first sound is a sharp scrape behind the fog, pulling the sweeper from his steady rhythm as dust rises around the empty stone. His chest tightens because dawn is quiet here, far too quiet, and anything breaking that silence means something has moved where nothing living should be. He steps forward with careful breaths, feeling the cold air cling to his skin like a warning. A single trail of footprints leads across the street, fresh, clear, and impossible. And he fears he already knows who made them. He follows slowly, whispering doubts to calm himself, though each step only sharpens his dread. The footprints stop near the broken fountain, ending in a blur of dust where the fog thickens. A shape stands ahead, still as stone, watching without eyes or face, waiting without breath or sound, and the sweeper's heart sinks at the sight. The fog swirls around it as if drawn by its presence, and he tries to speak, but the words stay trapped in his throat. The figure leans forward as though hearing something distant, then fades into the fog like it was never there. The sweeper stumbles back and wonders the only question that matters: who walked before dawn if the streets were empty through the night? The sweeper returns to the main road with stiff steps, trying to calm the tight tremor in his hands while telling himself the fog plays tricks on anyone who works at dawn. Yet, the air feels heavier now, carrying a faint chill that follows him like a shadow. He listens for guards finishing their rounds, but the walls remain quiet, and the wind hides any comfort behind its thin whistle. He forces himself to sweep again, pushing broken leaves aside to steady his breath. He pictures the figure fading, trying to understand how something without a face could watch him so closely. The fear sits low in his stomach, steady and unwelcome, whispering that this would not be the last time he sees it. He looks down the long road stretching into the city's hollow center and senses something waiting there, patient and unseen, as though the footprints were only the first sign of a deeper truth he has tried too long to ignore. He follows the road toward the old market square, hoping the open space will ease his nerves. But the silence feels even thicker here. The stalls stand crooked, abandoned after years of fear, and dust settles over them like burial cloth. He tries to remember a time when this place was filled with voices and movement, but the memory slips through him like water. The fog gathers again along the rooftops, and he pauses in the middle of the square, listening to something faint and far away, like soft steps that never quite touch the ground. He rubs his arms, forcing himself to stay focused, yet the chill grows sharper as though the figure still lingers nearby. He wonders if he should tell someone, or bury the memory before it grows heavier, but something deep inside warns that silence will not be enough this time. The sweeper stops near a fallen banner tangled against a post, brushing dust from its faded cloth. A soft gust moves past him, carrying the scent of old smoke mixed with damp wood, and he remembers the night the city emptied. It strikes him then that the fog feels different today, almost pulsing with quiet intent. He steps toward the edge of the square where the shadows deepen, sensing a presence hidden in the stillness. He tries to shake off the feeling, reminding himself that fear can paint shapes where none exist. But the memory of that blank face will not leave him. The silence presses tighter, as if waiting for him to speak first, and he wonders if the figure followed him or if it has never truly left this place. He decides to return to the barracks before the sun fully rises, hoping to find someone awake, someone who might listen. His footsteps echo in the empty streets, and each echo sounds slightly out of time, as though a second pair follows faintly behind him. He glances back more than once, but sees only fog twisting around the corners. The unease grows heavier with every step, settling deep in his chest, like a weight he cannot shake. He wonders if this morning marks the beginning of something the city tried to hide, something that waited for the right moment to be seen again. As he nears the barracks door, he feels the air shift behind him, light and cold, and he closes his eyes for a heartbeat before stepping inside, unwilling to turn around. The barracks door groans as the sweeper steps inside, finding Captain Roan already sharpening a blade by the dim fire. Roan studies him with a wary patience, sensing the tremor in his voice, as he tries to explain the morning's discovery. The words come out uneven, shaped by fear more than memory, yet Roan listens without interrupting, though doubt flickers across his eyes. The sweeper insists the footprints were fresh and the figure real, but Roan speaks of fog-born tricks and restless minds. Still, the silence between them grows heavier as though something unseen hangs in the room, listening. The sweeper grips the edge of the table, trying to steady himself, feeling that if he stops speaking, the truth will swallow him whole. Roan finally sighs and promises to walk the street with him at next dawn, though his tone carries no certainty. The sweeper nods, but unease clings to him, reminding him that the figure's presence had felt intentional, as if it waited just for him. Later that morning, the sweeper steps into the healer's chamber, where Lysa sorts dried herbs among cracked jars. She looks up, immediately reading the strain in his face, and asks what weight he carries. He hesitates, unsure if speaking aloud will make the encounter feel more real. But the memory presses hard enough that silence feels dangerous. When he describes the fading figure and the footprints ending in nothing, Lysa's expression shifts from calm concern to a deeper, more unsettled curiosity. She admits she has heard strange sounds herself before dawn, whispers drifting like wind through stone. The sweeper feels a fragile relief, as though someone finally believes him. Yet dread coils again when Lysa warns that such signs never appear without meaning. She urges him to be cautious, her voice soft but urgent, and he leaves with the sense that the city is beginning to stir with something long dormant. The sweeper returns to the streets with a broom in hand, but his mind drifts to the fog-thick corner where the figure vanished. Every creak of wood and distant echo frays his nerves, while shadows stretch across the broken stones in strange shapes. As he sweeps, he notices faint marks near an abandoned doorway, small scuffs in the dust that look older than the morning but too recent to be ignored. He crouches and touches the marks, feeling a cold shiver crawl up his arm as though something had brushed past only moments ago. He straightens quickly and scans the empty road, fearing he is no longer alone even when no shape stands in sight. The silence deepens, thick and watchful, and he senses the figure's presence lurking close enough to feel but far enough to remain unseen. As the sun climbs, Roan joins him on patrol, their footsteps echoing through the hollow streets. Roan questions him again, searching for cracks in the story, but the sweeper repeats every detail with steady resolve. They pass the fountain where the footprints had ended, and Roan stops, studying the ground with a guarded frown. Though nothing remains, his posture stiffens as though he senses something lingering in the air. The sweeper watches him closely, hoping for any sign of belief, but Roan keeps his thoughts sealed behind a soldier's calm. Still, the captain's grip tightens on his sword, betraying unease he refuses to voice. As they walk deeper down the avenue, both men feel the shift in the stillness, like a quiet warning, pulsing through the stones beneath their feet. By midday, the sweeper stops at the city gate, needing a moment to breathe as sunlight cuts through thinning mist. The open sky brings little comfort, for the memory of the faceless presence clings to him like a shadow he cannot outrun. He wonders if the figure has followed him since the siege, or if it rose only when the city grew empty enough to hear it. As he sits on a stone ledge, he feels a faint tremble beneath the ground, subtle yet unmistakable, as though something moves under the surface. He rises at once, heart tightening, unsure if the quake was real or imagined, but the fear settling in his chest tells him the city is not resting. He looks back toward the silent streets and senses that footprints will appear again, and much sooner than dawn. The sweeper returns to the old quarter where the buildings lean like tired giants, their beams twisted by years of neglect. The fog clings stubbornly to the broken rooftops as though guarding secrets left behind. He steps through a splintered doorway of an abandoned tower, feeling the air shift colder the moment he crosses its threshold. Dust lies thick as untouched snow, yet faint lines weave across the floor, marks too smooth to be made by tools or claws. He crouches and traces one with a trembling finger, feeling a strange warmth pulse beneath the wood. The silence presses closer, deep and patient, as if the tower itself listens. He wonders if the figure has walked here before dawn, or if these marks belong to something older still. A faint creak rises above him, and he freezes, every instinct warning that he is not alone inside these forgotten walls. He climbs the narrow stairs, spiraling upward, each step groaning under his weight. Halfway up he pauses, noticing the air grow unnaturally still, as though the tower holds its breath. Shadows stretch longer than they should, bending across the walls like dark fingers. When he reaches the top room, he finds scattered papers coated in dust, their faded ink forming symbols he does not understand. One sheet lies clean of dirt, as if someone touched it recently. He lifts it with slow care and feels a chill run across his palms, sharper than any draft. The markings resemble the shape of the footprints, curved in impossible patterns. He senses the same heavy presence from the dawn encounter, lurking just beyond sight. For the first time, he wonders whether the city's emptiness was a retreat or a warning left by those who fled too late. Carrying the page, the sweeper steps onto the outer balcony where wind sweeps through broken railings. The city stretches before him like a hollow maze, silent and waiting. He looks toward the market and the barracks, seeing them from this height with new unease, as if threads connect every abandoned place to a single source. The paper flutters in his hand, pulling as though nudged by unseen force. He grips it tightly and leans against the railing, trying to steady his breath while distant echoes ripple through the streets below. For a moment he hears footsteps, soft and measured, walking across stone far beneath him. He leans forward, straining to see through the fog, but every alley remains still. A deep thought roots in his mind. Whatever follows him is no longer content with shadows. It wants him to understand something he is not yet ready to face. He descends the tower quickly, the uneasy pressure in his chest urging him back to open air. When he steps outside, the fog seems to thicken, as if closing in around him. He walks through the deserted lane, tracing the shapes of old carvings along stone walls, noticing that many resemble the symbols on the page. They spiral and twist like paths leading to the same end. He reaches a collapsed archway and crouches to examine a carving half buried in dirt. The lines match the marks in the tower, smooth and deliberate. The realization chills him. The figure has not appeared suddenly. The city has been speaking through signs left everywhere, and the sweeper has been blind to them. He feels an urgent pull to uncover what binds these paths together before they tighten beyond escape. By the time he reaches the main avenue, the sun hangs low and red behind the mist, casting long shadows across the stones. He walks slowly, burdened by the page and the carvings echoing through his thoughts. Every corner seems to hide movement just out of sight, and each gust of wind feels like a whisper urging him forward. He realizes the figure's appearance was not the beginning, but a continuation of something that started long before dawn. The carvings, the marks, the silent footsteps, they all form a chain leading toward a truth buried inside the city's empty heart. He tightens his grip on the page and senses the figure nearby, watching through the fog with patient intent. The day fades, and with it, the illusion of safety. He knows the night will bring answers he is not ready to hear. Night settles over the city with a weight that feels alive, pressing against the sweeper's skin as he walks the darkened streets. The fog has thickened again, pooling between doorways as though waiting for him to pass. He moves with careful steps, guided by a quiet instinct pulling him toward the old watchtower, where the walls still hold the memory of the siege. Each corner feels tighter, each shadow deeper, and the silence carries a strange vibration like distant breath. When he nears the tower, he feels the ground tremble beneath his boots, soft but deliberate, as if something huge shifts far below the surface. He forces himself onward, sensing that the figure draws closer, no longer content to remain at dawn's edge. The fear bites harder, but so does curiosity, urging him to face what the city hides before it consumes him entirely. Inside the watchtower, Roan stands near the stairwell, gripping his sword with a stiffness that betrays a sleepless night. The sweeper approaches him quietly, unsure how much the captain already senses. Roan scans the darkness beyond the doorway, before admitting he heard footsteps outside long before anyone should have been awake. His voice carries frustration, fear, and a grudging acceptance that something prowls the city beyond their understanding. The sweeper recounts what he found in the tower earlier, offering Roan the marked page. Roan studies it with a heavy frown, shaking his head as though trying to banish unwelcome truths. The silence in the tower deepens, pressing against them with steady force, and both men realize the city no longer hides its secrets. It demands attention. As Rowan prepares to inspect the carvings outside, the tower shakes with a sudden rumble that sends dust raining from the rafters. The sweeper grabs the wall to steady himself, while Rowan draws his blade in a single motion. Eyes fixed on the vibrating stones, the tremor grows stronger. Not like an earthquake, but like something shifting its weight beneath them. A low hum pulses through the floorboards, rising and falling in unnatural rhythm. The sweeper feels his heartbeat synchronize with it, as if the sound pulls at something inside him. Roan calls his name, breaking the spell, and urges him toward the exit. The sweeper stumbles after him, shaken not only by the tremor, but by the strange pull that lingered in his chest, hinting that the figure is far closer than before. Outside, the night air feels colder than it should, biting through their cloaks as they step into the open square. The fog swirls in unnatural patterns, coiling like strands drawn toward a single point. As the sweeper approaches the center of the square, he feels the hum again, softer now but unmistakable. Roan circles around him, examining the ground, trying to find any trace left behind. Then Roan suddenly stiffens, stepping back as faint footprints appear in the dust, one after another, forming slowly as though pressed by invisible weight. The sweeper watches with tightening dread as the prints grow closer to him, deliberate and slow, stopping only a few steps away. Roan lifts his sword and urges him back, but the sweeper cannot move. The air trembles with something expectant, as though the figure stands inches away, though unseen. The fog tightens suddenly, pulling together until a dim silhouette forms, rising from the swirling haze with slow, deliberate shape. The sweeper's breath stutters as the faceless figure emerges, closer than ever, its smooth head angled as though listening to the tremor in the air. Roan shouts a warning and steps forward, but the sweeper lifts a hand without thinking, stopping him. Something in the figure's presence calls to him, a familiarity he cannot explain. The figure tilts its head further, and the hum in the air deepens, echoing inside the sweeper's ribs. He feels the ground beneath him shift again, not violently but with purpose, as if welcoming him. Roan urges him to step away, but the sweeper remains rooted, realizing with chilling clarity that this encounter is not an attack. It is an invitation, and he does not yet know what will happen if he accepts or refuses. The sweeper wanders into the heart of the city, where the fog thins just enough for the old stones to show their cracks, each line reminding him of memories he tried to bury. He walks slowly, feeling the strange pull from the encounter linger in his chest like a signal calling him home. He stops beside a shattered archway and runs his fingers along the cold surface, sensing a distant echo that rises the moment he touches the stone. It feels like a memory without shape, something he once knew but forced himself to forget. The humming that followed the figure still vibrates faintly inside him, steady and patient. He tries to push the feeling away, yet it grows stronger the farther he walks. He senses that the answer he seeks is tied not to the figure alone, but to something he lost long ago, something the city remembers even when he does not. He makes his way toward the healer's chambers, hoping Lysa might offer clarity where Rowan's caution could not. She stands amid scattered jars when he enters, her eyes widening at the tension she sees in him before he speaks. When he describes the figure forming out of fog and the strange pull in his chest, she listens with steady calm, though her hands tighten around a cloth she holds. She explains that old stories speak of echoes born from deep sorrow, shapes that linger near those who cannot face what the past left behind. Her voice trembles slightly as she adds that such echoes grow stronger when the truth they guard draws near. The sweeper feels a cold understanding settle inside him, though he cannot yet grasp its full meaning. Liza urges him to stay close and not wander alone, but he already knows something will pull him back into the city's silence soon enough. He steps back into the open streets, still feeling Lisa's warning echo in his mind. The wind sweeps through the alleys, stirring dust that drifts in slow spirals around his boots. As he walks, distant memories tug at the edges of his thoughts. Soft voices, running feet, a night filled with fear. He tries to piece them together, but they slide from his grasp like mist slipping through fingers. Near the old granary, he finds a long, forgotten doorway, half blocked by fallen beams. Something inside calls to him, and he pushes the debris aside enough to step through. The air within is stale and thick, and the moment he enters, he feels a sinking sensation, as though crossing into a memory he never meant to revisit. The silence inside the granary holds a weight deeper than the darkness itself, pressing on him like the first hint of truth. Inside the granary, he finds scattered marks on the floor, carved shallowly into the wood with the same looping patterns he saw in the tower. He kneels and brushes dust aside, feeling the grooves warm beneath his palm, pulsing in slow rhythm like a quiet heartbeat. The sensation brings a memory surging forward. A night when he stood in this very place long before the city fell silent. He remembers fear, hurried whispers, and a shape watching from the shadows. The memory is incomplete, but its weight crushes his breath as he realizes he has crossed paths with the figure before. The carvings around him form a circle, almost like a warning or a plea, though he cannot tell which. He rises shakily, convinced now that the figure's return is tied not to chance, but to something he left unfinished in this place. He steps out of the granary with unsteady breath, feeling the city shift around him as though reacting to his discovery. Whoa! The fog swirls along the street in tightening spirals, guiding his gaze toward the distant square where he first saw the figure. A deeper hum rises beneath his feet, more distinct than before, almost like a call meant only for him. He stands frozen as the realization settles. This presence has followed him for longer than he dared admit. Shaped not by malice but by memory, he refused to face. He senses the figure waiting beyond the corner, not hidden this time but expecting him. The road ahead feels heavier with each step he knows he must take. The truth waits in the square, and facing it is the only way to understand what binds him to the silence of this abandoned city. The sweeper follows the narrowing street toward the old square, feeling the hum beneath the stones rise with each step. The evening light has faded into a deep gray, and the fog thickens around him like a curtain drawing shut. He walks slowly, gripping his cloak as if it might anchor him, though the air feels too heavy to breathe. Shadows stretch along the walls in long, bending shapes that twist whenever he moves. He senses the figure waiting ahead, its presence no longer distant but pulsing through the fog as though calling him nearer. With each step he feels memories stirring, fragments of voices, shapes of faces, and a grief he pushed so far down he could almost pretend it never existed. The square appears before him, silent and faintly trembling, and he knows that crossing into it means facing the truth he has carried alone for far too long. In the center of the square he pauses, studying the scattered carvings etched into the ground. They form a spiral pattern he once saw as meaningless marks left by time. But now he senses purpose in every line. He steps inside the pattern and feels the air shift, pressing lightly against his skin. A faint echo rises, soft at first, growing into a low, rhythmic pulse that fills his chest. He kneels and touches the stones, feeling warmth radiate from them as if the city itself breathes beneath him. Memories flicker. Fleeing footsteps, a cry swallowed by darkness, the flash of a silhouette without a face. He lifts his hand as the hum deepens, and for the first time he understands the carvings were never warnings. They were anchors meant to hold something steady, and he realizes he stands at the center of what they were built to protect. The fog thickens suddenly, and the hum rises into a steady throb, pushing him to his feet. A shape forms at the square's edge, tall and still, emerging with the same slow precision as before. The faceless figure steps forward, each movement stirring the fog like water around a stone. The sweeper stands frozen, his breath shallow, yet he feels no urge to flee. Instead, a strange familiarity washes over him, settling like a forgotten truth, warming in his chest. The figure's smooth head tilts as though recognizing him, and the hum inside the air aligns perfectly with the beat of his heart. He realizes this presence follows not out of malice, but because it is bound to something he once left behind, something only he can face. The silence deepens as the figure stops a few steps away, waiting for him to speak. He steps toward the figure, feeling the hum surge through him like a living heartbeat. The fog curls upward, as though retreating from their closeness. With shaking hands, he reaches toward the figure's chest, expecting only cold emptiness, but instead he feels a faint warmth pulsing from within. The sensation triggers a buried memory, a night filled with chaos, the city falling apart, and someone reaching for him before being swallowed by fog. The memory hits hard, sharp enough to steal his breath. He pulls his hand back, realizing the tremor in the earth is echoed by a tremor in his own mind, as if the figure's presence stirs memories he tried to erase. The figure does not move or raise a hand, but its stillness carries a message he can almost grasp. It is not here to haunt him, but to reveal what he has long denied. The fog trembles as the figure steps closer, its featureless face reflecting faint light that seems to pulse with his own heartbeat. The sweeper realizes the spiral carvings around him match the rhythm echoing through his chest, as though the city itself remembers what he refuses to face. He closes his eyes and lets the memory unfold fully. Shouts in the night, a desperate escape, and a friend who stayed behind to protect him when panic swallowed the streets. That friend vanished without a trace, leaving only silence in his wake. When he opens his eyes, he sees the truth in the figure's stillness. It is shaped by the grief he buried, formed by the memory of someone he lost and never mourned. The hum softens, no longer a warning, but a truth calling his name. He stands grounded in the center of the spiral, knowing the final answer lies just beyond this moment. The sweeper stands within the spiral as the night settles into a heavy stillness, every breath feeling connected to the slow pulse rising from the stones. The figure remains beside him, silent and unmoving, yet its presence no longer feels distant or threatening. Instead, it carries a quiet weight, like a memory shaped into form. He steadies his breath and waits, sensing the city listening with him. The fog begins to thin, revealing the square's worn edges, as though the darkness itself has stepped back to let him see clearly. He closes his eyes and lets the memory settle. The night he fled, the friend who stayed behind, the promise he never kept. When he opens his eyes, the figure stands closer, the hum softening into a rhythm that mirrors his own heartbeat. For the first time, he feels the city urging him not to run, but to understand. He steps forward, ready to face the truth, waiting inside the silence. He speaks into the quiet, letting the words fall slowly, admitting a fear he carried since the night the city collapsed. He describes the panic, the confusion, the friend who urged him to run while staying behind to hold back the chaos. The fog shifts as though reacting to his confession, curling softly around him. The figure tilts its head, the blank face reflecting a dim shimmer that matches the tremor in his voice. As he continues, the hum beneath the ground grows lighter, losing its heavy pressure and becoming something gentler, almost encouraging. The burden he carried for years loosens, and he feels the city's weight lift from his chest. When he finishes speaking, the square grows quieter than before, peaceful even, and he realizes this truth was what bound the figure to him. The silence now feels different. Not empty, but waiting for release. The hum deepens once more as the figure lifts its hand with slow, smooth motion, stopping just short of touching him. The sweeper feels warmth radiate from the gesture, gentle and familiar, like the last memory of a hand once reaching for him. The fog swirls around them, gathering into a soft curl that rises like a calm breath. He realizes then that the figure is a shape woven from grief and memory, held together by the part of him that refused to let go. It waits for permission, for the moment when he is ready to release what he has carried alone. He steps forward, closing the small space between them, letting the memory settle into acceptance. The warmth spreads through his chest, dissolving the weight that had lingered for years. The square brightens under rising moonlight, as though the city itself sighs in relief. A soft tremor ripples through the ground, not like the earlier warnings, but like a final exhale from the weary city. The figure begins to fade, its form thinning into strands of pale light, drifting upward with the rising fog. The sweeper watches in silence, feeling neither fear nor loss this time, only a quiet understanding. The glow around the figure pulses once more, matching his heartbeat before slowly dimming. As it dissolves into the night, the spiral carvings beneath him lose their warmth, settling back into cold stone. The fog withdraws across the square, revealing more of the city than he has seen in years, as though the darkness no longer needs to hide. He stands alone, but no longer feels empty, knowing the figure's presence was never meant to haunt him. It was a voice of memory, waiting for him to listen. Dawn breaks slowly, pale light spreading across the abandoned streets as he walks toward the city gate. The silence feels different now, no longer hostile but peaceful, as though the city finally rests. He glances back once more, seeing the faint outline of the square, bathed in gentle morning glow, free of the dread that once clung to every corner. The footprints that had haunted him at dawn no longer appear behind him, leaving only his own path stretching forward. He breathes deeply, and feels a quiet strength replacing the fear he carried for years. Though the city remains empty, he no longer feels alone within it. He steps through the gate, ready to face whatever waits beyond, knowing the truth at last. Some echoes follow not to frighten, but to guide. And the silence that remains is no longer a warning, but a promise of peace.